very warm welcome to Bophelong. This is your show about those who dare to dream, those who are brave enough to set trends, and of course, those who make us proud to be Africans. My name is Bophelong Molebati. Today we get up close and personal with founder of Riley Auctions, Kwanele Boltina, who is shifting our view of the auctioneering sector. Our producer, Sinenhlanhla Mthembu, spent some time with Kwanele, his friends and family to get the lowdown on what inspired him to venture into a career as an auctioneer. Have a look at this.
5,000. I got 45, I'm looking for 50. Subject to confirmation. It is sold to you, sir. 45,000, subject to confirmation. Thank you.
Born and bred in what was formerly known as the Transkei, this notable young black auctioneer is now making a significant impression in South Africa. Meet Kwanele Boltina.
Grew up in Mthatha, born and bred in Mthatha, but I like to call myself a global citizen by the virtue of having family all over, spread across, I'd say, Africa and abroad as well.
He lived a very lively and active childhood in the streets of Norwood.
I was a very problematic child, so back then I didn't understand the principles of discipline. So I thought it was the worst that a person could get. I've been picked on, my life is the worst, whereas the reality is a certain foundation was being laid and it was just pure discipline. I grew up in a very competitive environment. I've got 4 brothers, and because of that, I always had to be on my toes.
Kwanele, a very energetic person, very brilliant and very quick. Now, raising a child like that is not easy, because you also have to be quick, to have wisdom, your manager. Because such children, gifted children, he's a very gifted child, Kwanele. Everything ayenzayo, be it something you must do, okanye a good, he does it thoroughly.
His friends also described childhood days spent with him and how he was always playful but handled problems maturely.
Everybody knows him by the name of Quakes. Quakes was short. We were kind of tall. we were kind of tall, and we had daily visits. Like if I don't go to his house, I go to his house, or we all come here and we play around, and we used to play rollerblades, rolling down the road here. And Kwanele, I remember we rollerblades. No, those with 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time, what's wrong? Is up. Did I want to balance? No, my God, so I come and I hold him, but okay. I don't know how it goes. I get like a look at just like I won't go. But one thing about the Quakes, he always had a solution for everything. He was the clever one. About he had these ideas. Everyone would look at him and say, man, like, no, serious guys, I've got a plan for this. He was that vibrant guy, that you never see him in fights, getting involved in other things. Always this positive person.
Basically, Kwanele, I've known him since elementary school. Even the first time I knew myself, I was playing with Kwanele everywhere. He lived up the street, went to the same schools. I mean, everything. Our lives are very intertwined from the from the word go. So Kwanele, we've always known him as Masheleni, and he was a smooth one, man. Everything he had every answer to every problem. You could solve everything. Even if you're angry with him, when you came up to him, you felt like beating him up. He knows what to say to you. You calm down, even if you're angry. He was a type of smart guy. He was a very, very good guy. Nice to be around, and there's a lot you can tell about him.
I always had an entourage of friends. I always spoke a lot. I was always the rebel without a cause. I was always the abstract one out of the crew. I always did things differently. Growing up, I'd always go for the awkward sneaker if I had to buy a sneaker. I'd always do the weird and crazy stuff.
Brought up under an academic family tree, he was also steered towards that direction.
I wanted my children to be independent thinkers so that they find their niche in life and they go for it. Because zininzi izinto ebezikhona ngoku ebezingekho when we grew up, opportunities. So I wouldn't know exactly. And I'm a medical doctor, and I didn't want any of my children to be a medical doctor, not unless they were clear that it's their calling. Ukwanele at that stage showed his signs as very clear that he would be very good in business. We are a business family, both on the father's side and on the mother's side. We are entrepreneurs. It's a family of entrepreneurs, so they were exposed to entrepreneurship at a very, very early age.
He tried a career in engineering, but later decided that hard hats and overalls were not for him.
My first take at education after matric was, I was very hands-on, fidgety, breaking and opening stuff. So I tried my hands on IT. However, I was then drifted into the engineering space, which I did, but I wouldn't say I regret, because I don't have any regrets in life. I think every experience that we go through is a learning curve. I did the whole engineering thing, but it's the one thing that actually made me realize that, you know what, I no matter what the qualification may be, I can't end up my life working for a multinational company that is recognized internationally and just saying I'm an engineer and that's where it ends. I needed to stand out, I needed to shine.
In fact, he never practiced electrical engineering. Immediately after qualifying, he went to Cape Town. He was employed in Cape Town in marketing. And it was like, it augured well with his character. Ukwanele loves people. He loves interacting. In fact, it's his strong point, which could have been his weakest point. He loves people. He's passionate about people. So when ultimately he went into auctioneering after the marketing season was over for him, I just said, you know what, he will do very well in auctioneering. Because uyayithanda izamazama into ngizawuthina andiyanoma ndizayibeka kanjani na. He loves to go into untempered territory. And the auctioneering, you never really know what's going to happen. You can't predict exactly how your day is going to be. In a drama, it's exciting. It's exciting. And it's a new territory for black people.
Gwanele then decided to venture into a career unconventional.
I used to work for a company called Birchmore's. I had a target of 15 cars a month before I could earn commission. And it pushed me. I made, on a measly salary, but I used to, eventually I managed to get some commission. However, there was a gentleman who used to come in once a month on Saturdays, and we would have a monthly auction where he would take all the cars we failed to sell during the course of the month, and they would put them together under one roof, and he would conduct an auction, and he would sell plus minus 150 cars to 200 cars in one day in a space of 3 hours. And that's when it struck me. They say God works in wonders, because immediately after this realization, I had a car accident which resulted in me actually losing my job where I was working, and I was back to square one with nothing and a deadbeat spirit, and my emotions were down. I moved back home, Mthatha, after applying so many times for employment, after knocking on various doors for opportunities to work, working for some friends under their companies, assisting them, being a driver, even guys calling you Capella or whatever. because you are assisting this so-called friend who was evidently progressing in his life, and you needed something to kind of keep you going. I woke up and I said, you know what, my life can't end like this. I was destined for greatness, you know. Something inside me kept telling me, Kwanele, you'll be better than this. Then I stopped visiting the internet cafes for job hunting. I started visiting them for sourcing information about auctions. It's funny how I actually applied for work in all the prominent auctioneering companies that exist today. And funny enough, today I sit with them in boardrooms and we negotiate and talk about various ways to improve the industry and all of that. And I laugh at it and I always tell them, you know what guys, it's funny how years back I sent my application to you guys looking for employment and you never gave me an opportunity. Now I sit across you in a boardroom running my own company. Who would have known?
After the break, we talked to Kwanele about his experiences thus far as one of the very few young black auctioneers in the field.
Finally, getting the click in Xhosa right. Fitting into your thin pants. Making it out of the friend zone.
With so many good deals at the Tops at Spa Surfest, you'll find any reason to celebrate. Buy a bottle of Jameson Irish Whiskey and Schweppes Ginger Ale for only $279.99. Only at the Tops at Spa Surfest.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day's breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories. We go beyond the surface, including on how it will impact your life. Join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Welcome back to the show. The auction sector is currently seeing transformation, and the man at the forefront of this movement is Director of Riley Auctions, Kwanele Bultina. In this next inset, Kwanele talked to us about his strides in the field and what still needs to be done to open up the auctioneer industry.
Riley Auctions has been running since 2014, but this is how everything started.
I then ran into a former politician's son who is a very close friend of mine and currently a partner of mine. But he has no interest in the auction space, but he understands business as a whole. He then said, my man, listen, my dad's got the money. He can invest in this thing. Do you believe in it? I'll go in as a partner. We'll pump in the cash. After approaching banks and other creditors and financing agencies with business plans and so forth to thingy. And at that point in time, our office was in, our first office was in Bedford View on a street called Riley Road. And we needed to register a company and change it from East West Auctioneers, put him as the new director, change the name to be something catchy, something that would flow with the tongue and something that would penetrate the doors, because we realized that gatekeepers in a predominantly white industry would pick up that ungu inkokeli auctioneers. They would already put you aside and not give you an opportunity. So by virtue of that, we then chose Riley Auctioneers, which was based on where the first office was, which was on Riley Road in Bedford View.
If you don't know what auctioneering is all about, the auctioneer himself explained it better.
The word auction is derived from a Latin phrase called auger. To augment means to increase in value. In ancient times, there was a process of trading which was called bartering, where I would exchange a certain good to you in exchange for something else. And there was also what we called auctioneering, which would be the disposal of various assets. It's basically the disposal of assets, whether immovable or movable. Movable assets being vehicles, furniture, machinery and equipment. Immovable would be your warehouses, your property, residential or commercial, your land and so forth.
Growing up under his grandfather, a known businessman in the Eastern Cape, Kwanele had the value of patiently waiting to make the right professional move.
And one of my key strong points is being able to source work and broker deals. It just comes naturally for me. And auctioneering, it encompasses all of those in one. As I'd mentioned earlier on, I'm everything at the company. I can start the car, I can wash the car, I can do the debranding, I can do the venue roll, I can do the catalog, I can do the advert. I will do everything from scratch, from point A to point Z, to actually finally standing on that podium and actually selling and realizing value on the assets that I've sold.
I thought he was going to venture into other businesses like his grandfather, like being in the sales and the sales industries, but he still is in the sales industry because he's selling good stuff. He's in the auctioning business.
Confirmation. I got 14,000 on my left. I am selling to him. Can I sell? I'm going once. I'm going twice. Subject confirmation. File number 234. Thank you.
There's a saying we say in the auction industry that you're only as good as your last auction. All right. My biggest auction would be with one of my biggest clients. I think it kind of put me on the map as well. It would be with South African Revenue Services, which is SARS. That is one that I hold dear to my heart, and I've held a few more for them as well. Another auction I hold dear to my heart was in my hometown, which is with the district municipality OR Tambo. So I hold it dear to my heart as well, by the virtue of the fact that for the very first time in my life, I actually went back to where I grew up, where I come from, and I actually conducted something that I do, that they'd be seeing on social media, that they'd be seeing on TV or wherever else they'd be seeing me do auctions on print media or whatever. And for the first time, I'd actually come and done it in my hometown, and I did it with success, yeah.
And just like any other industry, this one too has its own fair share of problems.
Anyone can start me off with the bed, please. I'm looking for beds on the floor. Anyone can start me off with
So the challenges are, it's a predominantly white-owned industry. That we can't deny. And for a number of years, centuries of years, black people haven't played in the space. Now, by virtue of myself being in the space, I have been noted that what I do and will not be sustainable. It will not last. People think auctions, the money that comes in is what you've made. That's not the reality. We as auctioneers work on what we call a commission, and because of that, it drives us to sell. Because if you don't sell, you don't earn.
The Nelson Mandela Museum is one of Kwanele's clients, and he explained his relationship with them.
Nelson Mandela Museum are an organization which holds various collectible items in the name of an icon called Nelson Mandela. It is in our hometown, and ironically, I'm also from the very same hometown that Nelson Mandela comes from. And they seeked and sourced a service provider that would actually assist them not to just dispose of assets, but realize value from these assets so that they could also raise funds for other initiatives and other programs that they would like to mobilize within their structure.
Let's take another commercial break. We are back with more on the story. Stay with us.
we're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC.
It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that.
And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. It speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members. We should also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
Welcome back to Bophelong with me, Pulem Molebatsi. We are a few minutes away from wrapping up the show. Today we ventured into uncharted territory with Kwanele Boltina, who's currently changing the landscape of the auctioneering sector. Here is what you can expect in the future for Kwanele's career.
Whenever he's visiting back at home, he always tries to find a way of giving back. And this time around, he paid a visit to his primary school.
As opposed to the other schools that I'd been to, I have a more rooted relationship with them. Firstly, that is why I would choose them, and I think they are less advantaged than the other schools that I went to. For example, there's an initiative and after our last visit that I've been in discussions with now with the principals and the rest of the body corporate and other stakeholders as well, is that ever since I was there, we were told that the school would have a swimming pool. To this day, which is 20 plus odd years later, there still isn't a school. And after discussing with them, it saddens me that one day a relative of mine would actually go through those halls and walk the same very fields that I walked, and still not be exposed to a platform of going to a school where he or she can learn how to swim.
With his feet firmly planted on the ground, his future looks very promising.
We were actually encouraging him and saying, you know what, this is it. This is what you are supposed to be doing. This is what God has made you for. This is God's purpose for your life, the auctioneering industry. And I am not fearful at all, and I am totally at peace with where he is, because I can see he is going to go very, very high. I speak that into his life, and I know it is going to be there. He's going to make it. He's going to be one of the best auctioneers in South Africa and Southern Africa, actually.
One thing I can say to him, and one thing I would like anywhere he would go, is to stay real to himself and never change, and he must not forget where he comes from.
He shared some of his dreams.
There's 5 major banks in this country, all right? 4 are currently conducting what you call asset and vehicle finance, and 1 is not. One of my dreams and visions is firstly to have these creditors and these banks comply with transformation and actually work hand in hand with key industry players in the industry to actually transform the industries. 2, to sit on all of their panels and prove to them that I can do it better, 3 times better than any other auctioneer that is out there, never minding the color of my skin. And then 3 is for Riley to be recognized not just nationally but across the world. I want people to think of Riley whenever they think of a black person in the auctioneering space. They must think of Kwanele and they must think of the company Riley Auctioneers.
The message endiyam endinayo mna for Kwanele is that he must look at his roots. I brought them up in the knowledge of God, and I know he's a believer. I know he's got faith in God, and he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. It's even the sky is not the limit. He must just fly out there like an eagle and just do it.
And Kwanele's message is very simple.
One thing I'd tell anyone who's coming into the auctioneering space, I don't care who or what or where you come from, you'll never, it's a very competitive industry. And it's more diverse than what people think it is. You're not just a man who stands on a podium and speaks fast. It's more diverse. There's administrative elements of it. There's the getting the work. There's the actual delivery of the work, lotting out, doing venue roles, and all of that. And if you are going into the industry, make sure you've equipped yourself with the right credentials, academically and otherwise.
The most important person he looked up to, his late grandfather, may have passed on in 2006, but his hammer-wielding grandson has inherited guts in business, and that alone would have made him very proud. Kwanele, you've worked hard, you stayed positive, and made it happen. A famous quote by Martin Belay says, "If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door," and that's exactly what you did. Riley Auctions is proof that you're professionally capable of renewing the auction industry, and for that, Bophelong salutes you.
And that's how we end our show for today. Thank you so much to you for watching. Until next week, it's a goodbye from us here on the show.